right, Mr. Hearing Officer, the recording's been started.
Terrific. Mike, are you recording on your end too?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. All right, everybody, good evening. We're on the record in the matter of encroachment permit application number L-95-S-0181E. The applicant is Lutherhaven Ministries. My name is Chris Bromley. I'm a private attorney serving today as the hearing coordinator in this proceeding. Today is Tuesday, April 27th, 2021. The time is shortly after 6 p.m. Pacific time. The public hearing today is being conducted in person as well as via Zoom. Before I open the hearing for comment, I would like to ask Chris Gozo with Department of Lands to give a brief tutorial on how to use Zoom. So Chris.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer. I'm going to go ahead and share an image here. Okay, so everybody should be able to see that now. For those of you joining Zoom, in the Zoom interface, if you mouse over the screen, you should see a menu bar pop up along the bottom. It may or may not look exactly like this, but you should see a mute button in the lower left. The mute button might also be located in other places in your Zoom interface, but essentially we like to make sure everybody is muted while others are speaking to make sure we're not catching any background noise. And then when it's your turn to speak, you can go ahead and unmute. The other key functionality that we're going to be using in the Zoom call today is the chat functionality. So if you need to send a message to the hearing officer, or if we've requested name or email for public comment, you can click on the chat button and then a screen should pop up towards the right. And if you'll see in my screenshot here, next to 2, everyone is selected. You can click that drop down and then you should see an option for a hearing officer, and you can send a message directly to him with your email address and any other information he requests. So that's the basic functionality of Zoom. I don't believe we have any call-ins today, so people only over the phone interface. So everybody appears to be connected using the PC interface or the application interface from a mobile device. So you should all have this functionality. And if there's any questions about usage or any technical issues, please let the hearing officer know, and I can jump in and assist as well. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. So this evening, I'm facilitating a public hearing involving Lutherhaven Ministries encroachment application. My responsibility is to consider the application in the written record, take comment, and determine if the application meets Idaho's statutory, regulatory, and case law standards for approval. I'm then tasked by the director of the Department of Lands with issuing a preliminary order, which will be reviewed by the director, who will then issue a final order no more than 30 days after conclusion of the hearing. The 30-day time limit, just so you all know, is a requirement of Idaho code that's unique to Department of Lands. Before we begin, I would like to establish the order in which I will take comment. So first, I would like to hear from the applicant, Lutherhaven Ministries, to provide an overview of the application and offer any comments it wishes to make. Second, I will provide an opportunity for governmental agencies other than the Department of Lands, if there are any, either on Zoom or in person, to provide comment. Third, I will take comment then from the public. And before I address the order in which I take public comment, I would just like each one of you to know I've read all the comments that I received as of 5 p.m. Mountain Time. I provide equal weight to both written and oral comments. So then, as to the order of public comment, I will first take comment from those persons who are physically located at the department's office in Coeur d'Alene. So as I understand it, Mr. Magnuson and his clients are at the department's office, and I will first ask to hear comments from them, and then I will take comments from anyone else at the department's office. Then after hearing from those persons who are in person at the department, I will take comments from those of you on Zoom. If you have a document in aid of your oral comments, please upload those now. And if you are not able to upload those right now, that document must be received by the department no later than noon tomorrow to become part of the record. Fourth, I will provide the Department of Lands an opportunity to provide its comments. After then hearing from everybody once, I'll then provide Lutherhaven Ministries an opportunity for reply and to make any closing remarks. And just as a reminder, because this is a public hearing in which I'm taking comment, there will be no cross-examination or questions by anyone present. That said, I might have some questions, so please don't be surprised if I ask any. For everyone who will be speaking, please know this meeting is being recorded, as we mentioned at the very beginning, and it may ultimately be transcribed by a reporter, a stenographer, someone who writes down the spoken word. So in order for the reporter to accurately describe oral comments, all of us, we need to speak clearly and try and slow our cadence just a little bit. The reporter can't describe hand gestures, nodding of heads, or words like or uh-huh. So I might ask you to slow down or to speak a little more clearly, or use words like yes or no. So please understand this is not an admonition toward you, but rather just simply to create a clear record in case this needs to be transcribed. Lastly, please remember to be respectful and courteous of others when they're speaking. Please remember to silence your cell phones, and please consider muting your Zoom connection while others are speaking. And because this is a technology-driven hearing, we all need to remember to be patient if for some reason any technical difficulties arise. With that, I will open the hearing and ask Lutherhaven Ministries to please describe the application and provide any comments it wishes to make. And who will be speaking for Lutherhaven Ministries?
Hi, I'm Bob Baker. I'm the Executive Director of Lutherhaven Ministries. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to tell you about Camp Lutherhaven and also tell you about our dock project. Camp Lutherhaven was founded 75 years ago. This is our actual 75th anniversary. We were started as a family camp for soldiers and sailors returning from World War II. And since then, over the years, we've become a year-round camp and retreat center for kids, adults, and families. We were a seasonal facility up until 1971, and in 1971, we became a year-round camp and retreat center. 75 years later, from our beginning in 1945, kids and families are still coming to camp, and they come here for pretty much the same reasons. They come here for the fresh air and the recreation, the beautiful environment, all the activities. They come for Christian faith formation, and to a major degree, they come for the lake. And so I kind of wish I'd submitted for the exhibit tonight some of the old black and white photos and the Super 8 video, movie footage that we've got of kids and families using our beach and our docks, actually taken back in 1946. The waterfront and the fun that kids have there hasn't changed much in 75 years. The images from 1945, 46 are pretty much the same images that you could capture today when kids come to camp, families come to camp, adults come to camp. The one thing different is the picture that I have of them building the docks in 1946 by hand, one board at a time from shore, extending out into the lake. Over the years, we have had many iterations of the docks. I was really appreciative of and surprised to see the Department of Land's 166 pages of exhibits that kind of gave a history of the Lutherhaven docks, as well as docks for other residential camps around the lake. We've had many dock projects through the decades, and probably the key reason for that is the wave action off the lake is a destroyer of docks. You can tell this, in fact, by just seeing the random docks that float in from around the lake every winter and land on the shores of Mica Bay. We've got some random docks that have floated in that look like whale bones sitting on the lake shore. We get major waves from two directions. At Camp Lutherhaven, we get major waves coming in from the west, straight down Mica Bay. And we get major waves coming in from the southeast off the main lake channel. The waves are compounded by the many boats that cruise Mica Bay. We've seen waves so high that they will knock kids on the docks down because of the wave action of the lakes. And we've seen waves so high that we've had actually boats flip up onto our docks because the waves pick them up and toss them onto the docks. So our docks get battered. I've been there at camp for 28 years. This is my 28th year there. And it seems like every season we ask, what are we going to do about the docks? What do we need to fix on the docks? How are we going to get the docks band-aided for one more year? And looking through all the Department of Land's files, the 161 pages, that's clearly been the question for 75 years. What about the docks? In fact, our current dock footprint looks really not a lot like the overlay of the new docks in our application. Currently, we have no boat slips at camp. Last spring, a storm broke 12 of our floating dock sections, which we had to haul out of the lake. And so a lot of this is just to bring the docks up to a safe standard for kids and families, and also to bring us back the capacity for boats. Lutherhaven doesn't have a lot of boats of our own, but we do have people that boat in off of the lake that are using camps. That's one of the features that we can provide for families, is they can bring their boat. We have people boat in on Sundays for Sunday worship services, and they might come in for a meal. And so our current proposal, I believe, is for 8 boat slips that we would add to the dock. And again, currently we have no boat slips because they've all been destroyed by the wave action of the lake. So the current project is to really replace the entire dock system. Everything that is in there will come out. And Harrison Dock Builders has designed a commercial dock system that will replace the current setup. A couple things I think are significant that I'll just kind of wrap up with. It's interesting that 42 years ago today, on April 27th, the Department of Lands issued a permit, which is in their documentation, for new docks for Lutherhaven with 12 boat slips. I talked to the director today, who was the director 42 years ago, and he says, yeah, we never built those docks. We didn't have the money to do it, but they were permitted by Department of Lands 42 years ago today. 36 years ago this week, actually the day after tomorrow, the Department of Lands issued a permit for new docks with 3 slips and spaces for 6 boats. Those slips were here when I arrived back in 28 years ago, but they were taken out by storms in the mid 2010s. And then again, 20 years ago today, because it seems like this must be dock season, at least for Lutherhaven, if not for the Department of Lands. 20 years ago today, in 2001, the Department of Lands issued a permit for us to add 3 additional places for boats in 1 slip. So a total of 4 slips. The current application is asking for 8 boat slips. And again, I think it's significant, even though under old rules that we were authorized for 12 slips back in 1979. One other thing about the docks that I'll share before I stop talking is that the western arm of the proposed docks, So the arm of the docks that's on the Schwann side of our property, that pivots to the west to about 11 o'clock from the current structure, give or take. And that's because the current swim beach does not hold sand. For some reason, the current swimming area that you see in the old outline doesn't hold sand. So kids are walking on bedrock as they walk into the lake. For some reason, the area that we're adding to the swim area, the extended swim area, for some reason that holds sand. The sand goes from the beach down into the water, and so it's way safer for little toes. And so that's actually the number one reason for swinging that arm to the west at about an 11 o'clock angle. So that's kind of a snapshot of the project. Again, replacing the whole system with new docks, adding 8 boat slips, and then swinging that one arm of the docks, the current docks, to the west, so that the kids have a sand beach walking into the water.
So thank you very much, Mr. Baker. One question I had is, I've seen in various places in the record, is it a community dock, a commercial marina, a single family dock? I see what's in some of the documents and just not entirely consistent. So, and maybe Department of Lands has a definitive answer on that, but I was curious what your understanding was.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the Department of Lands might have something to add to that. In the 2000, so in my history, in the 2001 application, which is in the records, we applied for a dock, and there aren't a lot of boxes to check as far as what kind of purpose we have that really encompass kind of everybody. And so we checked the box that said commercial, and then we put a question mark and we put down nonprofit, and that was approved in 2001. This go around, there were a couple of different iterations of the applications, but one thing of note is that we did apply for, I believe it was nonprofit Christian 501c3 camp, and the Department of Lands came back and said we needed, we were a community dock. We were currently operating as a community dock, which I'm assuming was for the last 20 years. And so we needed to change our application accordingly. And so from our understanding is that we're a community dock, but there is no box to check on the application for community dock. We are considered a 501c3 nonprofit, and so we are, by law, a nonprofit corporation organized for religious, educational, and charitable purposes. And so we're not technically commercial because we are nonprofit. Commercial implies business.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Baker. I appreciate that. Okay, are there any other governmental entities other than Department of Lands, so DEQ, IDWR, Army Corps, anybody like that on the, either in person or on the line, who wishes to make comments? All right, hearing none. Mike, I'll turn it over then to your room. And as we said at the beginning, then take comments from Mr. Magnuson first, and then anyone else who is present.
Mr. Hearing Officer John Magnuson, PO Box 2350, Coeur d'Alene. I'd like to say at the outset, I'm here on behalf of Susan and Kevin Schwann, who are both here with me tonight and who obviously live next door to the camp. My clients wanted made clear that this is, the camp serves a laudatory purpose, does a lot of good things, and this isn't per se about the camp. This is about encroachment rules and how they fit with this application in our view. We also wanted to know that in the event the application is not granted, that we remain willing open to discussions with the camp about accomplishing some of the goals they'd like to do in a proper manner. That having been said, because nobody likes standing up and talking against the camp, but we have the question you asked, which is probably the best question of the day, is what is the nature of this encroachment? Well, obviously it's not a single family dock, and it's either a community dock, or because we don't have a nonprofit camp encroachment permit, we put it under the commercial encroachment permit, even though it's not for profit, but that would be where it would fit. And so from a community dock standpoint, the application fails because, as you can see from the exhibits, which I know you have, but M1 was an aerial of the properties at issue. And the camp has 2 adjacent littoral properties. And the code is clear, which we just put an excerpt in for convenience at M2. Community docks are for 3 or more contiguous littoral properties, or with a common HOA type common area, which the department has previously interpreted to be a platted common area, as opposed to somebody simply saying that's a common area. So we don't have the requisite 3 parcels. And then we would have to look at, well, how is this dock permitted as it exists today? And I believe it's permitted, notwithstanding that, as a community dock, which would mean that it is a grandfathered non-conforming use. And as a grandfathered non-conforming use, it cannot be expanded, which is 58-1305E, unless A, the permit's in good standing. In the record at M6 is an acknowledgement from the department that what is built today is not what's permitted today, so the permit is not in good standing. B, under 58-1305E, it also has to be capable of meeting current standards. It cannot, because current standards are 3 littoral parcels. Regardless of, we could argue about they have to be under different ownership, but there isn't 3. Nor could it meet the code because the replacement would have to be the exact size or smaller. So as a grandfathered non-conforming encroachment, it is what it is and cannot be expanded. It cannot qualify under the community dock standard. And then if we're looking at it under the commercial standard, and I understand Mr. Baker's comment, but I don't think the commercial standard is necessarily relegated purely to, do you make money or not? It's whether you run a business, whether it's for profit or nonprofit. And I think the camp would, this is a situation where the camp, is a business renting out to folks, but not aiming to make money, but it is a business. And it operates under a conditional use permit because it's in the restricted residential zone. And in our materials, we have put in what is allowed in the restricted residential zone. A conditional use permit can allow for a camp of this nature. And in fact, that's what the camp has. It has a conditional use permit from Kootenai County authorizing a camp. And we've also put in the record that the dock, as it's proposed to be expanded over and onto the adjacent vacant parcel, would constitute a intensification of commercial use, albeit for nonprofit, that certainly in the planning director's viewpoint, it would be a commercial use on a parcel that is grandfathered under conditional use permit to existing uses, and would consist of an intensification of uses that would require an amendment to the CUP. So if you look under a community dock, it doesn't meet the rules, respectfully stated. If you look at it as a commercial dock, it doesn't meet the rules, respectfully stated. And for that reason, despite the good efforts of the camp, we would suggest that it should be denied. Any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you,
you.
Mr. Magnuson. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else, Mike, in the department's conference room there that wishes to speak?
No, sir.
Okay. Then I said I would open it up to people on Zoom. Anybody on Zoom who wishes to make a record of their comments in this matter? All right, hearing none. Mike, typically in these hearings, I've heard comment then from Department of Lands, usually accompanied by a letter, a writing. Is there anything that the department wishes to put into the record here?
Yes, sir. I have a statement I will read, and we can email you a copy of the statement as well. Copy of statement. You guys speak this way? Thank you. So I just handed a copy of the statement to Mr. Magnuson and the Schwans, and I will email you a copy of the statement at the end of the hearing as well.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Amer, and I am the Lands Resource Supervisor for the MICA Supervisory Area Office of the Idaho Department of Lands, IDL, and I am the supervisor of the NAB Waters Program. My purpose in being here today is to provide you with information regarding IDL's assessment of application for encroachment permit number L-95-S-0181E application filed by Lutherhaven Ministries, Inc., Lutherhaven, which is an Idaho nonprofit corporation operating a church camp facility on Lake Coeur d'Alene. Background. For the application, Lutherhaven is seeking an encroachment permit for a 266-foot by 132.5-foot dock facility comprised of a 6-foot by 30-foot fixed pier, a 4-foot by 10-foot ramp, 8-foot by 40-foot approach, 4 sections of wave attenuators that total 260 feet by 8 feet, 8 slips, and a 6-foot by 112-foot fixed pier with 1 recreational pile and a swim area 20 feet above the summer water level. The application also includes a request for canvas slip covers over 3 of the 8 moorages on Lake Coeur d'Alene. I'd like to point out that the initial application did include a private swim area. IDL worked with the applicant to revise the configuration, so there is no private swim area. As Mr. Baker was describing that dock that extends at about an 11 o'clock degree angle, that does not reach shore. There's about a 20-foot gap between that dock and the shoreline. So thus it complies with the state rules as not having private swim area. For the timeline, on December 23rd of 2020, Lutherhaven submitted its joint application for permit. On January 5th, 2021, IDL sends a letter to Lutherhaven informing it that the application is incomplete. On January 20th of 2021, Lutherhaven submits its revised completed application. On February 17th, 2021, IDL sends a copy of the application to adjacent neighbors and submits a public notice for publication in the CDA Press. On February 18th, 2021, IDL sends a copy of the application to the resource agencies and interested entities. On February 18th, 2021, the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ, responds that it has no comment on the proposed project. On February 20th and February 20th, 21, CDA Press runs the first public notice regarding the application. On March 8th of 2021, Stephen Rich, Executive Director of Campfire Inland Northwest, files a consent of adjacent littoral owner form. On March 17th of 2021, Susan Schwan and Kevin Schwan, who are also adjacent littoral owners, file an objection to the application through their attorney. On April 2nd, 2021, IDL Director Dustin Miller issues a notice of appointment of hearing coordinator and hearing. On April 17th, 2021, Tobin Carlson provides comments in support of the application. On April 19th, 2021, Mr. Jurich provides comments in support of the application. The next section in my statement references the applicable provisions of the Lake Protection Act, Title 58, Chapter 13 of Idaho Code. I'll read off the citation as opposed to the entire definition. These are the rules that essentially that IDL was reviewing as we were going through the application process. 58-1301, 58-1302, 58-1306. Those are for the Title 58, Chapter 13. As far as the applicable IDAPA rules pertaining to the application, we looked at IDAPA 20.03.04.010, which is definitions. We looked at the definition of a commercial navigational encroachment, number 10. Number 11 is the community dock. Number 12, covered slip. Number 16, encroachments not in native navigation. Number 33, riparian or littoral owner. Number 34, riparian or littoral right lines. And under section IDAPA 20.03.04.015, which is encroachment standards, we looked at 02, community docks, 04, covered slips, 06, breakwaters, and number 13, general encroachment standards. Now for IDL's analysis of the application's compliance with the LPA and IDAPA rules. At the outset, IDL notes that the objectors have raised concerns regarding upland zoning issues. IDL has no jurisdiction over issues above the ordinary or artificial high water mark, and the authority to resolve any concerns or disputes regarding zoning and conditional use permits lies with Kootenai County. A, littoral ownership. Lutherhaven Ministries, Inc. owns 2 littoral parcels on Lake Coeur d'Alene. Parcel ID number 49N04W-11-5550 and parcel ID number 49N04W-10-7275. Lutherhaven is therefore a littoral owner with littoral rights. B, type of encroachment. The objectors have questioned whether the Lutherhaven encroachments, either as they exist now or as requested, are truly a community dock. Admittedly, the typical community docks are associated with neighborhoods or homeowners associations. However, there are several reasons why designated docks, which are associated with camps and not leased out like commercial marinas as community docks, is appropriate. First, in order to have an encroachment such as a dock, one must have littoral rights. In order to have littoral rights, one must be a littoral owner or lessee. There is no dispute that Lutherhaven is a littoral owner as illustrated by its application, and it therefore has littoral rights. Those littoral rights include the right to maintain their adjacency to the lake and the right to wharf out or have docks. Notably, Lutherhaven has encroachments at this location for decades, and as shown on exhibit IDL-1, received its first encroachment permit in 1973, with 4 additional permits issued over the years, most recently in 2001. Second, the question then becomes, what type of encroachments are the docks? It is IDL's opinion that the lots owned by Lutherhaven constitute littoral common areas, and Lutherhaven is a littoral owner possessing a littoral common area with littoral rights. On that basis, and pursuant to the definition set forth in IDAPA 20.03.04.010.11, the dock components are a community dock. Third, Lutherhaven is not the only camp which holds an encroachment permit for a community dock. There are several other camps located in Kootenai County for which IDL has previously issued encroachment permits, whether they were for a church camp or other type of camp facility, such as for Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts. IDL has predominantly issued community dock permits for such facilities. The following community dock permits were issued by IDL for camp facilities. ERL-95-S-1742E, issued on July 19th, 2007. The most recent permit was on August 20th, 2020, which was transferring the permit to new entity. That original permit was issued to Ross Point Baptist Camp. Applicant checked the other box on the application and specified church camp guest. There is no indication on the application or file where IDL measured the lineal feet of shoreline owned and how much square footage the dock space occupied per the community dock rule, which is IDAPA 20.03.04.015.02C. which specifies that a community dock is allowed 7 square feet per every lineal foot of shoreline owned. L-95-S-3656A, issued on March 10th, 1998 to Twin Low Camp Assembly, which is on Twin Lakes. Applicant checked the public and private boxes on the application and specified church camp. The application indicated how much dock square footage was existing and proposed, but there was no mention or calculation of the shoreline on the application or through IDL's processing. L-95-S-22-8B, issued on May 30th, 2014 to Girl Scouts of Eastern Washington and North Idaho. Applicant checked the private box on the application. There is no indication on the application and previous permits of the length of shoreline or square footage of the dock space. L-95-S-2329D, issued on December 8th, 2020 to Inland Northwest Council Endowment Property LLC, which is for the Boy Scouts. Applicant checked the private box on the application. On a previous application, the applicant checked the other box and wrote in Camp Easton, a Boy Scouts of America camp. Current and previous permits do not indicate how much square footage the dock space occupied per the community dock rule, which I mentioned before was at 7-to-1. ERL-95-S-7782A, issued on October 25th, 2006 to Camp Cross, Episcopal Diocese of Spokane. The encroachment permit application used at that time did not have any boxes to check, indicating whether the encroachment's use was private, public, or other. The application at that time was to replace existing docks. The original permit for that facility was issued in 1977, and the date of construction was noted as 1924. L-95-S-3639E, issued on May 31st, 2017 to Camp Myveden, which is on Hayden. Applicant checked the commercial box on the application. However, on a previous application submitted to IDL in 1991, the applicant checked both commercial and private boxes on the application. The last one we have here is L-95-S-2982D, issued on October 11th, 2011 to Camp Swylocken-Campfire USA Inland Northwest Council. On the application, under intended use, the applicant wrote commercial-seasonal nonprofit camp. In short, church camps and other camp facilities, such as Girl Scout and Boy Scout camps, may not fit neatly into a specific encroachment type. The camps are not marinas where slips are rented out, either privately or to the public. Rather, the dock facility is used by the guests and attendees of the camp. IDAPA 20.03.04.015.03H does reference private moorage and use within a commercial marina. However, as stated above, the camp facilities do not operate as a marina. IDAPA 20.03.04.0111 defines community docks as a structure that provides private moorage for more than 2 adjacent littoral owners or other littoral owners possessing a littoral common area with littoral rights, including but not limited to homeowners association. No public access is required for a community dock. This definition seems most appropriate for camp facilities, and as noted above, there's a good argument that the owners of the camp facility are other littoral owners possessing a littoral common area with littoral rights. Additionally, all the permits described above also have an associated submerged land lease per IDAPA 20.03.17. All of the submerged land leases are set up as non-commercial community as they have a private element to them. Shoreline length. IDAPA 20.03.04.015.02 requires that community docks have a combined 50 feet of shoreline. The application provides that there are 1,300 lineal feet of shoreline. However, a call to the Cooney County Assessor's Office confirmed that Lutherhaven actually has a total of 1,500.19 lineal feet of shoreline between the two parcels. Square footage of encroachments. IDAPA 20.03.04.015.02 further provides that the decking area of a community dock is limited to the product of lineal feet of shoreline multiplied by 7. Under that standard, Lutherhaven is entitled to 10,500 square feet of decking. By its application, Lutherhaven seeks 4,126 total square feet of decking, which is within the applicable limit. Extension into the water. Pursuant to IDAPA 20.03.04.013D, community docks may extend into the water to provide for sufficient draft for watercraft, although they should not typically extend beyond the line of navigability. In this case, the applicant is seeking to extend out 132.5 feet into the lake beyond the ordinary high water mark, which is approximately the same as the previous existing encroachment in the water based on aerial imagery measurements. Distance from littoral lines. There is a presumed adverse effect if community docks are located closer than 25 feet from the littoral line shared with adjacent neighbors. In this case, the fixed pier on the west side of Lutherhaven's proposed encroachments will be located approximately 84 feet from the shared littoral line with the Schwans. On the east side, the outer edge of Lutherhaven's proposed encroachment will be located more than 900 feet from the shared littoral line with Campfire Inland Northwest, which also consented to Lutherhaven's application. Therefore, there is no presumed adverse effect. The breakwater. Lutherhaven's application also includes a breakwater / wave attenuator. The applicant is requesting 4 sections of breakwater, 2 8-foot by 60-foot sections and 2 8-foot by 70 sections held in place by dolphin piling. The property is located on the north side of Mica Bay, which is a popular location for boaters seeking calmer water, as well as facing due south towards the longest part of fetch on the lake. The breakwaters should protect the 8 morages, as well as the swim area for the guests of the camp from recurring wave energy from the south. Slip covers. Finally, Lutherhaven has applied for 3 slip covers. A call from IDL to Harrison Doctors confirmed that the slip covers will be the typical and allowable canvas coverings over a steel or aluminum frame. The applicant is not seeking a hard or permanent covering over the slips, which is prohibited. Conclusion. Based upon IDL's review of the application, as well as the existing permit file and applicable rules, IDL concludes that Lutherhaven Ministries has satisfied the criteria for approval of a community dock, breakwater, and slip covers. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Amer, I don't have any questions. I would like to give Mr. Magnuson an opportunity. This is a legal analysis that the department has done, where I think everybody's agreed that it doesn't fit neatly into the boxes on the form. And I appreciate the department's analysis of this, and Mr. Magnuson hasn't seen this yet. I would like to give him an opportunity to respond to anything he's heard. I think it'll just help the record, so that it's clear what everybody's thinking. So Mr. Magnuson, I don't know whether you have anything you want to add or not, but I would entertain that now. And then I would close with Mr. Baker just in reply.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer. I'll be brief. Yes, I hadn't seen the analysis before, but that's fine. I understand that's how the process works. So it's helpful that now we're down to a community dock. But the 2 prongs, we're back to the 2 prongs. It's not a community dock because there's 3 or more adjacent littoral properties. Now we're down to quote, or other littoral owners with an S, possessing a littoral common area with littoral rights, quote. Typically, and I'm sure Mr. Amer would agree with me, that has typically been utilized in the context of, as he indicated, homeowners associations with a platted common area, because that's multiple owners as members of the homeowners association having littoral owners possessing littoral common area. And frankly, and it's, so interesting because over the years I've been in front of the department many times, and in fact I have had single property owner request a community dock, and it would not be allowed with a single owner until they had a platted common area. In fact, one on Hayden Lake, we actually could not apply for the community dock until the plat was final recorded and created the common area, which was the interpretation urged to the department by then Deputy Attorney General Steve Schuster. So again, looking at the analysis, we have one owner. We have one owner owns 2 lots, not 3, and not littoral common owners owning a littoral common area in common. So it's trying to make a square peg fit in a round hole. I understand that there is some uncertainty as to how prior permits for prior church camps have been issued, but if a permit's incorrectly issued for 6 other people, it doesn't mean the 7th should be absolved of compliance with rules. So maybe this is an issue for administrative rulemaking to put a church camp exception in. But I'm sympathetic to where the applicant is at, but this is a tortured reading with all due respect of the code because it's only one owner. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Mr. Magnuson. I appreciate that. Mr. Baker, as the applicant, would provide you an opportunity to reply.
Mr. Hearing Coordinator, I'm the attorney for Camp Lutherhaven tonight, and I am going to do the reply since it functions upon legal analysis. My name is Susan Weeks. My address is 1626 Lincoln Way, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, 83814, and I've just sent that to you through chat.
Thank you.
So tonight you are hearing this is a legal issue of a legal interpretation. So I am going to address it from that perspective. First, I would direct you to Idaho Code 58-1302 subsection F as in Frank. And in that portion of Idaho Code, it discusses a riparian or littoral right and says it means the rights of an owner adjacent to a navigable water or a lake to maintain their adjacency and to make use of their rights as a littoral owner. So that's a statutory right given to anyone who has property upon a lake. However, the interpretation you're asked to take tonight of the IDAPAs would prohibit Lutherhaven from having any littoral right, because as Mr. Magnuson has argued tonight, Lutherhaven is certainly not a single family residential property. So under the IDAPA, they would have no right to a dock. They are not commercial. They do not maintain their docks for rental or for free for the general public. So they would have no right. And under Mr. Magnuson's interpretation of a community dock, they would have no right. I would submit to you that that is not the proper interpretation of the Idaho Administrative Code. It needs to be interpreted in such a way that credence is given to Idaho Code 58-1302 so that every littoral owner, including nonprofit church camps, of which you've heard there are many on our lake, have the opportunity to exercise their littoral right. So let's revisit 20.03.04 subsection 11 and discuss whether or not it fits in. And I want to talk about Deputy Attorney General Schuster's position on community homeowners and that common areas had to be in plat. And my comment to that would be those decisions, many of which I also was involved in through my years of being a real estate attorney, came down before the rule change in March 20 of 2020. So I don't think they really have a lot of persuasive value tonight on what you need to decide. But looking at a community dock, it's a structure that provides private moorage for more than 2 adjacent littoral owners. It does not say they have to be separate, distinct, and individual. It says they have to be adjacent, and adjacency is determined based upon who owns the property. Camp Lutherhaven owns 2 littoral rights, 2 properties, so they have 2 adjacencies. You also have in the record before you tonight from Camp Swaylachen, the neighboring property to the east of Camp Lutherhaven, that they utilize the docks when it's too high for them to get in, when the water is too high for them to use their own docks. So I would submit to you, you have evidence before you that 3 littoral owners will be using those docks, albeit one of them will only be using it occasionally. also, I believe we fit under the common area prong. And I think that the language of the IDAPA certainly shows you that with rulemaking, the department backed away from the position that a common area could only be from a plat, because it says specifically in there that it is for littoral owners possessing a littoral common area, including but not limited to homeowners associations. So it's moving away from that plat concept of we plat a piece of real property, the homeowners association gets the rights to a common area, and that's the only common area we have. That, to me, that signals a determination we're going to look at if we have more than one littoral owner and they're going to be using an area in common. And Lutherhaven meets that definition because they have two adjacent parcels and they have a common area. And Mr. Baker explained to you how they use that common area. Both parcels, which compose part of the 60-acre camp, use that for swimming and for entertainment and recreation for their campers who are at the camp. So I would submit to you that we have the more than one littoral owners, and I would submit to you that they have a common area that they're using together. And so I believe we would fit under the .11 definition. And by being able to fit within that, we do not violate Idaho Code 58-1302 subsection F, and it affords the camps who have these areas to utilize them and enjoy their littoral rights. So I would ask that you uphold the department's recommendation and issue that permit. If you have any questions, I'm available to answer.
Thank you very much, Ms. Weeks. I appreciate that. And Mr. Magnuson, appreciate what you had to say. Mr. Amer, also appreciate what the department added. It, to me, does come down to interpretation of law. I'm familiar with both with the department and with other state agencies within Idaho that there are boxes, and sometimes the boxes don't always fit neatly. So I really appreciate everybody's analysis here as to how this can apply and or not apply. And I will take this matter then under advisement. I will issue a preliminary order, as I stated at the beginning, which will then be reviewed by the director and will then become a final order within 30 days. So thank you very much, everybody. And with that, I will close the record and we can stop recording.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer.
Thank you.
Thank you.